Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Are you somebody who's standing on the fence with everything that's going on? Are you sort of not a bit unsure whether all the stuff that comes out of my show and shows like it is all just, poppycock? Or is there elements to it you think, well, it could be, but I'm not sure. Maybe the government wouldn't be as mean and nasty and as nefarious as perhaps that Vobes character makes out. Or maybe there isn't such a big agenda. Maybe it's, because when I go down in the street and I see everything, it all looks pretty normal. And maybe it's just a bit of overplay. We had a bit of a sort of an issue 4 years ago. Everything's all sorted. It's all gone and forgotten now, isn't it? Are you one of those people? Are you somebody who is perhaps open to ideas but is scared of looking? Well, today, my guest is Celia Jennings, and she's written a book, and it may well be something that will help you decide for yourself whether you are on the fence or decided to take that leap of faith and jump off. And you can decide which side you want to go onto. Celia is a former osteopath, a healer. She's carrying on with the healing now with a healing of awareness, she says. I met her down in Bournemouth when I was giving a talk, and she joins me now. Celia, it's lovely to have you on the show.
Hi, Richard. Lovely to see you too.
Thank you so much for coming on. Now, when we met, you thrust this book into my hand, and it's called Resistance, Apocalypse, and Great Awakening, The New Paradigm, and you have a version of it there. And I've been looking at it. It's actually been one of those, the great thing about it, it's one of those books you can read from cover to cover if you so wish, but you can just open it on any old page, really, and get some insight to stuff that you may have heard about or not heard about, and makes you go, oh, blimey, didn't know that. So it's an amazing book.
Thank you.
So let's find out a little bit about you and your background, and then let's talk about the process of what made you write the book and what the book is about and how it might help people who are, as you said, standing on the fence or not 100% committed to things one way or another. So I said there you're a former osteopath, but you've also travelled around the world, it says in your bio at the beginning.
Yes, I have, and I'm wearing my Peruvian purchases from last October.
Oh,
And
lovely.
I was delighted to be able to go there. Then it was a spiritual journey for me.
And are you a spiritual person?
Totally.
Totally. So would you say that, we'll get back into your history, but would you just, as we mentioned that, is this a spiritual war that we're in? A lot of
Yes,
people
that's
say
a
that.
very good summary of it. It is. We're actually Well, I'm not sure if Armageddon as a kind of final battle has happened yet, but it's certainly leading up to that. And the apocalypse, which also means the great awakening or great reveal, actually, where things are showing themselves up to be what they really are, is happening. And thankfully, on one strange level, I am actually grateful to the COVID nonsense for the fact that a lot of people started waking up and going, hang on a minute, there's something wrong here. Something doesn't flow in this information we're being fed.
Mm. And well, I do tend to agree with you because it does look like this event sort of backfired a bit because there's a lot of people who are beginning to think, hang on a minute,
Mm.
this has crystallized perhaps some thoughts or feelings, gut reactions that I've had in the past. And it's kind of now, actually, I can see many of the harms that the government are putting upon us, but other bodies, other unelected, unaccountable, elite so called people.
Yes.
But let's just get back to you first of all then. So
Okay.
you studied,
Osteopathy.
thank you. You
Well,
studied that and you got into healing.
in the
Um,
70s.
what is it about I can't say it, you see
That,
now,
that bone
that that
word.
that wonderful subject
Yeah.
that appealed to you?
Gosh. Well, I initially, as a sort of early teenager, thought I might be a go into medicine, and then as I got closer, I started to see that, bless them because they are a lot, probably a huge amount, are doing their best, wanting to heal people, help people. but they were just glorified pill merchants. And I
Mm.
even realized that in the 70s. And then my mum, bless her, spotted an advert for a local osteopath and said, "How about this?" And so we went along, and I got an instant yes, and so started the study process.
And what does that involve for those that don't know?
Oh, well, at the time in the 70s, it involved full time 4 years. It's now 5 years with a degree, but at the time it was just a diploma. Full study of anatomy and physiology. I used to wander into the dissection labs in UC, UCH, London uh, hospital, training hospital, excuse me, and put on somebody's white coat and look important and wander around to what they were dissecting, and somebody would say, "Oh, where's the such and such organ, bit of an organ?" And I'd say, "It's in the heap over there." And they thought I was, one of the tutors because there were so many people there.
Right.
That's the extent of the knowledge we were trained in.
Oh, golly.
And then full pathology, the understanding of disease on so many levels. So, but the focus, of course, was to helping the body help itself.
Yes. And that, I mean, this is sort of knowledge that is now slowly beginning to proliferate the internet, alternative media, that the body does actually heal itself. And we're not at the mercy of just people who've happened to have gone to a certain type of
School.
centre, yeah, school, and a sort of very science based, if you want to call it that,
Mm.
and of course these are things that people knew years ago, long time ago, and it's not a surprise to a lot of people
Mm.
that actually that's true. It
Yes.
just seems to be a surprise to those people, those medical people in white coats.
Well, probably will continue to be a surprise because they're so, bless them, they're so indoctrinated,
Mm. Thanks to
doc-
their training.
indoctrinated, and that that unless they start their own journey because of something that usually happens to them, makes them start to think more laterally, um, then it just carries on in the same way.
So clearly, you started to become aware that things weren't as right as they ought to be fairly early on. What do you think was influencing you to think that way?
Can you phrase that slightly differently? What was influencing me apart
Yeah,
from?
I mean, what was you know, you clearly started to see that the world was not the sort of clear cut way that it's been taught to us through mainstream media,
Mm.
and indeed through sciences or through doctoring. So what made you question things to go on a journey of research to end up? I know you've done two previous books and then this your third book.
Thank you. Okay. Brilliant. Well, I also have been on a very long personal growth journey since the 80s, through breath work, all kinds of things. I seem to be a sort of taster, and some things land and really take root. And because I saw that I was an unhealed, physician, heal thyself, I had to undergo my own journey. And so that sort of expanded and started to be awareness of consciousness and how people are viewing the world. And then more recent, I did hear about various things over the decades, really, and I thought things aren't how they
Yeah.
seem, but I never went fully into it until these recent years when,
And yeah, I mean, we can thank the internet for a lot of
yeah,
information being divulged because,
yes,
you know, unless you knew what you were looking for, it'd be buried at the bottom of the reference libraries and places like that,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
and few people were telling you exactly where to look.
Yes. Yes.
And of course, we were being influenced by all the mainstream media of how to think, and so a lot of people didn't even think about that.
Yes.
So you've written two previous books. I don't know if you've still got them there to hand to flash up on the screen.
Oh,
Wait,
all right then.
there we
I
go.
can see a
Me way
little
as well.
bit of a theme. Oh, I see. Thank you. Wait a minute. I'm going the wrong direction.
That's all right. So you've got Resistance, the Whole Truth, and Resistance, Signs of Emergence.
Yeah.
So resistance is clearly a theme that you
Yes.
have.
Thank you. Yes, for noticing. Well, um, in my various inner journeys, at classes to help me develop that, people would often say to me, "You've got a lot of resistance." And I thought, well, what's wrong with that?
Hmm.
There is actually a lot of value in resistance. In fact, so much so that that's what made me write the first book, which was the dark, starry one. Went
Right.
wrong direction
The Whole
again.
Truth.
The whole
Yeah.
truth. And because I decided to look at the physical universe and the metaphysical universe. And I discovered that resistance is absolutely essential for anything to work
Right.
in the world of physics, electrics, politics. Nothing changes without resistance, etc., etc.
So
So, sorry.
no, no. I was just going to say, how would you describe then what you mean by resistance? Is it questioning everything,
Yes,
or
it's questioning, but it's a little bit beyond just questioning. It's resistance is what happens when you push against something.
yes?
So yes,
And people don't like that, do they? I mean, especially now, if you were in a hospital and you're told to give somebody a medical intervention, and you start saying, "Hang on a minute, I'm not sure we should be doing this because of this reason and this reason," which may be completely valid reasons. They don't, or in any workplace, people are not keen on people resisting because they see it as a negative.
yes, yes. Um, so, and in the metaphysical world, namely the, if you like, the unseen world or the world of the inner journey, again, there's nothing wrong with resisting what you're being told. You know, if you just follow through, you don't just resist for its own sake, but you sort of create a dance of resistance and allowing.
So in the metaphysical world, who are you resisting?
Who was I resisting?
Yeah, no, I mean, not necessarily you, but who would one be resisting in the? Is it the principles that you're being asked to follow, or or is it you're resisting your higher self, or your subconscious, or God, or something like that?
Well, all of the above, actually, ultimately. Um, the resistance, I suppose, in a context of a workshop, might be that I kept asking too many questions, too many,
Mm,
and you know that can be a bit of a nuisance to the teacher. But
yes,
but it helped me understand because what they were trying to say, I couldn't quite get it. And
yes.
so by asking the questions and go, oh, I see, or I'm not sure I entirely agree, etc., etc.
Well, that is one of the problems with answering questions, isn't it? Because then the answer may be something that you have a reason to not go along with anymore.
Yes, absolutely, and totally relevant, pertinent
Mm.
for us these days.
Absolutely. And as your latest book goes to show, so much of what we think and have been led to believe as being truisms
Yes,
is actually lieisms
yes,
or false or theatre or
yes,
not quite, there may be some elements of truth to it, but actually and people of course have been grown up to think in a certain set way so that they don't question and discover these truisms
yes, absolutely.
or
Um,
lieisms.
like isms.
Yes, I've sort of a word I've just
No,
made up
it's
now for the
great.
purpose.
I'm totally into made up words. There are two or three of mine in there. Can't remember where they are, but yeah.
So, I mean, the research that you've gone into then is huge because you touch on so many things, and just when I flick through the book, I think, oh, okay, oh, that story, or oh yeah, I've just learned about that, and you'd already published the book, and there it is. So tell us about the research to gather all that information so that you could then plot it into a book so that people can learn from it and not run miles thinking, oh my God, the end is nigh.
Yes, quite. Thank you. That was a process, actually. It only took 6 months to write the book.
Right.
From the moment when my friend sat clutching my books, looking out into the far distance, I can see the sea from here. Um, and she just said, "You have to write another book." And I went, "Oh God,"
It's
because I
true.
know what's involved,
Yes.
it's so
So
intense. But
what
I just,
what was her motivation for saying that?
well, I don't think she was motivated. She was inwardly guided, I think. There
Ah,
was something about the quality of how she said it.
right. And
Uh,
you knew she was right.
I felt it, yeah. Because I know that I do like, I haven't any interest in writing fantasy novels.
Mm.
I'm only interested in non-fiction. So I thought, well, I do have access to a lot of information, actually, honestly, through the Telegram sites, through places like Rumble, and all the places.
Mm.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And so I just started gathering together. You have to start with notes and kind of then organizing them. Where do they go? I'm not even certain they go in the right place in the book, but it sort of didn't matter because it was
Mm.
like, get the stuff out there. Because
Yes.
my dream, I guess, became um, how do we get people to realize that stuff, big stuff, is going on and come off the fence or start to be slightly explorative. But I wanted to present it in a way that wasn't too confronting,
Mm.
too like in your face, this much ghastliness and this much ghastliness. I wanted to say, take a look at this. This rabbit hole has this very interesting, just here are some websites, and a few thoughts. Go with it. If that's the topic that you're really drawn to, then please do go down this rabbit hole if you want to go further. But I'm not going any further because it's too ghastly for me.
Yes.
But
And uh,
yeah,
and of course, I mean, when I went down the rabbit holes, and I'm not saying I've gone down them all, because some, as you say, some of them are just too scary, and you kind of go, okay, I know roughly what's down there, but I don't need to see it and have it imprinted on my retina.
yes.
And I've only got the one, so I'm
Oh,
protecting as
bless
much
you.
as I can. But the thing is, you think, oh, all right, then there's a few conspiracies in here. I'll read them, and of course, as you go on, you start realizing, hang on a minute, how many things are going? How much didn't I know that is going on? Where is? And your brain is constantly turned upside down
Yes.
from all the different things. You say, well, it can't be. How does money just be created out of thin air? Or
Mm.
why would people jab you with something that's not perhaps very healthy for? All these sort of
Mm.
questions. Um,
Yes. And resulting in what people are calling cognitive dissonance,
yes.
namely that kind of, oh my God, how do I handle this? And how do I handle the fact that I've been denying it all this time?
Yes, I had this conversation with my son, who thinks I'm a complete mad conspiracy nut. But as he says, well, there's a lot of money to be made in conspiracy, so
Is
I
there?
can't remember. He said, rinse them. He said, rinse them for as much as you can have. And I think to myself, oh my goodness, is that how people think of those that are desperately trying to hold up a mirror to the world that we are and just saying, think for yourself, think
Yes.
differently.
Yes.
I never ask anyone to believe what I say
Mm.
because they can do their own due diligence. But my son, bless him, and I love him to bits,
Yes.
will go to the fact checkers online and see, oh no, Dad, you're talking a load of rubbish because somebody else who I've never met has told me, because and it seems in line with what the government or mainstream media are saying. How do we conquer this?
Oh, please don't ask me that. Um, I
I mean,
don't-
that's, I suppose that's partly what you're doing in your book, isn't it?
yes,
You're offering up
information. Yes,
information.
yes. Education in the real sense means leading out, you know,
Yes.
so or drawing out or something. And so, yeah, education in the truest sense.
Because I think if you can drop a doubt in someone's mind, they
Yes,
don't necessarily need to know there's a McNasty or there's an agenda that's been dreamt up centuries and is slowly unfolding, in real time. As long as they've got that doubt, is that really a good idea? And they do the work themselves,
yeah,
perhaps with a hint of something from a book like yours,
yes,
and then they come to that realization, they're more likely to accept it, aren't they? I think.
yes, yes, yeah, I agree. I mean, my intention, I suppose, became that um, it would be the sort of book that would be left lying around for people to kind of flick through them. I mean, I heard recently of a friend, oh yeah, a friend who has it, and a friend of his was visiting. He picked it up, flicked through it, and went, "Oh God, that's deep," and put it back down again. But it's like, good, anything and everything.
I, Sometime last year, early last year, it must have been January or February time last year, Julia and I were just walking along the seafront. It was a beautiful day,
Mm,
and there was a book left on a park bench,
mm,
just left there, hardback book,
yeah.
and it was the I can't remember the title now exactly, but something along the lines the true Anthony Fauci, famous
With that
book.
one, the famous
Yeah.
by was it Robert F. Kennedy?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
And it was sitting there, and we passed it, and I thought, that's really interesting. What a strange, because you wouldn't expect to see a book like that just left out in public for,
Yeah.
And anyway, we carried on with our walk because I thought, oh, somebody's obviously left it there, forgotten it, and they'll come back and claim it, no doubt. But I was itching to pick it up and take it away with me. But I thought, well, it's not a very honourable thing to do in case somebody came back. Anyway, we finished our walk and we were coming back and it was still there. Nobody had lifted it up. And
Mm,
I thought to myself, now I look back and I think that was probably meant for me, because I did pick it up. I'd given the world a chance to reclaim it, and I picked it up. And of course, it's a fascinating read, and we know all about that particular obnoxious man
right.
and his
Agendas.
agendas and so on. And with some books you could do that, couldn't you? You could leave them
Yes.
in places once you finish with them, and you've got all the knowledge and
Yeah.
stuff, so that
Yeah.
somebody else may be attracted to them and start them on a journey.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe I should do a sort of Johnny Appleseed with chuck them.
Well,
Um,
there used to be a thing. I remember, years ago, there used to be a thing where you would leave it in a bus stop or on a bus, and then
yes.
you would say, if you found this book, read it, then leave it somewhere else. And in the back,
Yep.
you would put all the different places, and people would find them with all sorts of different destinations, because people read them on planes and on
Yeah.
buses and journeys.
Right.
And some of the books were travelling all over the place, which was
That's interesting.
quite amazing.
Yes. Interesting.
And that's something you can do with a book, which you can't do when it's online.
Quite.
I mean, you can share stuff online,
Yes.
but with a physical book, that may or may not have travelled to all these places that they said, and people have
Mm,
held it.
yes.
And if you're into vibrations and things and all of that, it may be carrying part of that with it.
Well, exactly. I mean, speaking of vibrations, sort of moving on swiftly to,
Mm,
I just love these things that I did steal. I'm happy to steal things and give credit when I can find it, but I can't
right.
always find it. Um, this is a wonderful Banksy, apparently.
Oh
Um,
yes, the
yes, the
evolution of man.
evolution into being jolly old barcodes.
Yes,
That's an option for our future, not. Let's not.
not an ideal option.
Right. And this one, I don't know where this came from, but I just had to use it. It's wonderful. It's the potential evolution into our higher self, the expression of our higher self. And
Yes,
that's what this flower of lovely purple flower of life is about. And that's I'd like to say second half, but it's actually less than a half the book. Is about the Great Awakening, is about our inner evolution into our spiritual beings, into more awareness of our actual spiritual beings.
yes,
And and there's a whole list. I've counted them. There's about 167 different routes of evolving oneself. Some people are drawn to something relating to dance or martial arts or whatever. There's so many inner and sort of outer journeys that link with the inner, and so
and
I just found myself wanting to list things like a reference. Choose this, try that, whatever.
yes, creativity
Yeah.
is very much the thing, because we're very easily pushed into humdrum, repetitive lives with nothing creative, repeating the same old thing under artificial light in front of screens,
Yes.
and not knowing that there are some joyous things that we can do.
Mm.
And some of us are blessed with that right from the go. I mean, I was always creative. I've always been making things up, and not so much interested in other people's things, but much more interested in doing my own. And it's like, come and look at my play, or come and look at my film. Never mind all the others. But it is that sense. I mean, as you get older, you get a little bit more respectful about it, and not so egotistical, hopefully. But being creative is very much a sort of a way to get you on the journey, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a left-right brain thing. You know,
Mm. And
it's right.
and we see so much of that being dumbed down these days, that people are not given that opportunity to,
Mm.
machines. You can shove a piece of wood in a machine one end, and out comes a chair or whatever, and to a certain extent, and or even to the point that the creativity of the purchaser is limited to actually screwing the thing together
Yes, really.
in a set pattern,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's no freedom to do anything else. I think,
Yes, yes.
which
And
to me is a bit of a shame.
I'm always delighted to see like people who love working with wood and uh, you know teaching the old ways of woodworking and lathe work and that kind of thing. Keep It is being maintained by
Mm.
strong individuals. It always is individuals, isn't it?
Yes,
And
yes,
who just love what they're doing and love to pass it on, and so it takes other individuals to listen and keep.
absolutely. And I don't think you can ever knock that out of people. Certain people. I mean, we've knocked it out of the vast majority of people, sadly,
Yeah.
who they might. You might be. Dad will do a dance at a wedding, and you get dad dancing, as so to speak. But he's not there going to do tango dances, or it's like that's the limit of his
Yeah.
movement ability, which is a real shame. But there's always people who are creative and want to help others.
Mm.
In the book, I mean, so much in it. What was the most surprising elements that you've discovered as you were gathering the information of what was going on? What surprises you most?
Gosh, I'm sorry. I'm very surprised by your question. So,
Well, I'm sorry I didn't give it to you in advance, which is how we
I've
do these
no
things.
idea.
It's just
Yes, exactly.
no idea. So,
Um,
so I mean, what is the most worrying aspect of what's going on?
yes, thank you. That's possibly a bit more easy to kind of grab a hold of.
Mm.
Um, well, what's worrying is how wide and to jump on their bandwagon, how global it all is. The whole
Mm.
lockstep of how everybody reacted, and uh,
And
yeah.
was that, I mean, that, to me, that was surprising when I saw people during the 2020 agreeing to something which to me just seemed nonsense. It just seemed very strange that people would agree.
Mhm.
And then, having gone through all the lockdowns and happy to imprison themselves, that they were clamouring and lining up for a medical intervention that was so. I mean, never mind whether it was good or bad, they were just happy to have something put into them, really without any consideration about the long term effects.
Mhm. Yes,
And
there
that
was.
was surprising to me.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Had a talk. I attended a talk locally. In the New Forest, they're having a lot of good stuff, and a chap called Graham Atkinson. I don't know if you've come across him.
The name rings a bell. I'm just trying to place him, actually.
Yes.
I don't know
He,
whether I've had him
he
on the
was.
show or not.
I'm not sure you have. He was an NHS worker, but
Right.
working in the more administrative side. And he started questioning to the point where he was sacked, at least
Yes.
only sacked. But he lost his job. And so he started to actually gather more information, and he's hopefully putting together a book with so much detail and
Mm.
graphs and things to show how all the figures were statistics and everything were manipulated, etc., etc. Um, so he lives up north, I think. Um, but his Twitter thing is Red Pill something or other.
Ah, maybe that's where I've
Yes,
heard his
yeah,
name. Yes, there we
yeah,
go.
yeah.
So here's a question then. Based on what you've just said, the fact that there, you can go into all the detail of all of these things and the efficacy of a certain medical intervention, the backhanders that were going on in government, the the narcissistic approach, the pressure, the fear factor from mainstream media, and all of that. And then when we take it all back, we go back to a small bunch of people who sort of perpetrated all of this, and people are talking about it all the time now. The question is, do you think that they really thought this through? Because it does seem that people are very much waking up to what's going on. And did they think they could get away, that nobody would notice? Because there's so many people now, as you say, going into infinite detail and saying, it was bleeding obviously. Then we didn't notice at the time, but it was bleeding. Do you think they got it wrong?
Um, See, the thing is that I suspect that these mysterious they people
Mm.
are think they've thought it through. Uh, they think they put together this lovely agenda. They prettify the words and put it out there, and they assume, and in some cases rightly so, unfortunately, that people will follow that.
Mm.
But what they cannot um, anticipate, because they don't think like that,
Mm.
it is people questioning, people, and a sort of parallel um, trajectory that's happening into the spiritual. Here's this negative stuff down here, and meanwhile, the spiritual is completely, it's under the radar, so to speak, but it's happening inside us, and it's getting stronger and stronger, and they don't like this, and they're doing everything they can, and that's where we are today.
Yes. So in a way, although they're pushing harder than they would perhaps ordinarily, and
Yes.
and as a result, we're seeing it.
Yeah, yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I mean, that does seem to me, if they'd waited another 50 years and did it more slowly, perhaps they would have dumbed us to the point where we couldn't see it. But
Yes.
it does seem like they're rushing. And the other thing I think is they've believed their own publicity. You know, they,
Nice one.
and that is a problem. People, when you get to a certain level of success, you start to believe what people have told you. Oh, yes, you're very successful, you're knowledgeable, and all of that.
Yeah.
But actually, um, I know with comedians, for example, once you get very, very famous, they don't have to work quite so hard because they
So,
just rely on catchphrases and things that
mm,
people think are fine. Whereas when you're a hungry comedian,
mm,
you're desperately trying to find material, you're sharper, you're honing your skills.
yeah, the mother of invention.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And so it does seem like they just think, oh, we'll do this and nobody will notice. And of course, we are.
Yes, we are, which is wonderful.
Definitely.
And
So are you optimistic for the future?
yes, I am totally. Um, I'm more of a realist than some people like.
Right.
Some people like, you know, pure positivity, and I tend to sort of stand back a little. I'm a sort of back of the room person who goes, yeah, I'm totally with you. I can see some sort of cracks in there. So, but let's see how we co-create all of that. And I'm totally supporting all the wonderful work that people are doing. Um, one of my favorite comedians, speaking of which, sort of very prolific in the 90s, called himself Swami Beyondananda, and in the States. And I've met him, and he's a delight. And oh, and his wife's stage name was Trudy Light. Trudy,
No.
I love that sort of thing. So anyway, and one of the things he said, well, there are two types of mystics. There's the optimistics and the pessimistics. So I am an optimistic.
Right. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Because, we don't want everyone to go on a downer, do we? Because, I mean, if you're in the spiritual world, I mean, and this is a new journey for me,
Yeah.
that your thoughts are creating your experience.
Yes.
And if you're pessimistic all the time. Now, I did meet somebody the other day who was into Stoicism,
Mm.
who would say, and his, now I don't really know much about Stoicism other than you say to somebody, you've got to be stoic and just carry on no matter what, sort of
Yes,
thing.
that's my
But he was saying that you look at the worst case scenario
mm,
and you accept it and say, okay, I have to accept the worst case scenario. Anything better than that is going to be good, but I'm not necessarily planning on it. Which, now, I may have got that wrong, and I'm happy to be corrected, like all things. That's not for me because I don't want to even entertain the worst case. I'm happy to take like you said, a realistic case, but I'm happy to sort of go, but it's possible that it can be much better than just, one level. Does that make sense?
it totally. I mean, if I wasn't so optimistic as a person in my
Mm,
personality, um, I wouldn't. I might be even a bit stoical in the true sense, in the Greek sense of the word. Um, but um, but I don't like to start from a negative place.
right.
But I like to sort of include it in the realism of the situation. Yes,
Good. Good. So, are we going to win?
yes, of course.
Oh, there we go.
The dice are loaded.
The dice in our favour.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
When you write a book, I've looked at that. It was June last year. It came out.
yeah.
One of the problems with writing a book about current affairs
Mm,
is that you end and the book gets published at a certain point in time, and of course other things are happening all the time.
yeah.
One of the advantages of writing a book in print is it's there and can't be altered unless somebody comes around your house and corrects it, which obviously doesn't happen.
Mm,
So there's good things about having an online presence, and then there's sort of bad things because an online presence with this day of deep fake and AI can be changed and
Yes, that
manipulated,
too. Yeah.
and who knows whether we're the real people talking or not. It
Yeah.
could be just complete artificial nonsense. And so, is the book form your favoured sort of form? Even though I know it's a hard process to do.
Uh, Well, all I can do is say that I've also put it into an ebook, so somebody can sort of download it.
Yes.
And I'm in the process with a friend who is totally on, in our court of thinking. Um, she's helping me do the audio version. So, some people just like to listen.
Oh yeah,
That's their
absolutely.
preferred way of inputting.
Yes.
So, and she's got, I don't really have the right sort of voice. I'm aware of the quality of my voice, and I don't really have the right sort of voice to kind of really convey um, the enormity of the current situation, the negative situation.
Yes.
Um, so she has kindly, and I keep waiting for her to say, "Oh, I've had enough. I don't want to," but no, she's continuing. So
Brilliant.
I'm
Yeah,
excited about that.
it would be lovely if it was read by Richard Burton. Do you remember something like in the H.G.
Totally.
Wells War
Oh,
of the
yes.
Worlds when he went, "No one would believe at the beginning of the 18th, whatever it was."
Yes,
It's
yes.
like,
The one
you
that
know,
sent them all into, oh my God, it's actually happening.
yeah. Ah.
Yes.
So,
The War of the Worlds, absolutely.
yes, H.G. Wells,
Mm.
written I think around about 1880, something
64.
like that.
Mm.
Um, so this was in June and it's come out, and of course, urge people to get it. It's where is it available?
Uh, Only through Amazon, sadly. I couldn't. Okay, so the story in that sense is that I thought I'm not going to spend months, even years, looking for the right publisher. I have
Yes,
no idea where to start. This has got to get out there. So I started the process on, through Kindle. It's Kindle self-publishing. So publishing on demand.
yes.
And
But it's good that you can do that because,
yes,
I mean, I am amazed that at Amazon, still they publish all sorts of what you might call questionable material in
yeah,
this day and age.
yeah,
And so, even though they're a big corporation and making a fortune and all the rest of it, but good for them to allow people to have the freedom to publish,
totally.
um, truthful ideas or alternative ideas to what perhaps the mainstream would have.
Yes, I am grateful to them. Of course, each book cost me 15 quid to produce. So,
Yes.
because I wanted good paper and good quality inks as well, I can't bear sort of pathetic
No, no. I mean, if you're going to have a book, I
pictures.
mean,
Go
you
for
want
it.
to be able to read it, and of course, you've got color illustrations in there and pictures and stuff, which of
Yes.
course will probably bump the price up a bit.
Well,
Um,
absolutely. Yes, what I mean was it £15 to produce. That is if I get a copy myself.
yes,
Uh,
yes,
but you know, I still get the same low um, royalties whether I sell directly or
yeah.
through
No,
Amazon. In other words,
I've
they bump it all up. Yeah.
yes. I mean, they're making the bigger profit. I've done some self-publishing before. That's 6 years ago with Amazon, and
Yeah.
when I was writing kids' books, and I realised, gosh, you can do it, but it makes the books seem very expensive because of
Yes.
the thing. But it depends if you're interested in the content, and
It is about
uh,
the content.
absolutely,
And about being able to read it easily, as
yes,
easily as
yeah.
possible, anyway.
And I love books anyway, so I'm very pleased you sent it to me
Cool.
because you don't have to sit in front of a bloody screen. I do enough of that already, and you can just pick it up, as I say, and you can just
Yes.
pick up, and you've got memes in there, you've got screenshots from YouTube channels and the links, you've got all sorts of infographics as well as solid text from all sorts of different places,
Mm.
which makes it great to read. Are you working on another one?
No.
Another book?
No.
It's too much like hard work.
Oh my God, that was hard work. And I did go through a lot of despair, actually. I'd have to process my despair about the new bit of discovery, the new rabbit hole.
Mm.
And it's like, oh, okay, and breathe. Okay, how are we going to write about this, etc.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's a dark subject that you touched,
Yes,
and that must get into your psyche. And it's I think when you've done something like, it's nice to sort of go, okay, I've done that, I've done my duty,
yes,
but now I need to lighten my
yeah,
brain.
absolutely. I mean, it's something I know from my healing work is that when you're going through some stuff, if you process it and acknowledge it to yourself, then you start to integrate it so that it's gone back to being just information
Right.
instead of a source of pain
Yes.
or
Yes. So you've
difficulty.
kind of
Yeah,
thrown it up,
yeah,
got it out your system,
that's
and
right.
can walk away.
But it's also part of me. I know it now,
Yes.
and I survived, and it needs to be out there.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the book is called Resistance, Apocalypse, and Great Awakening, and it's The New Paradigm by Celia Jennings, available on Amazon. I'll put a link on the description. People can go and order their copy in the millions. And you can then come back on the show from some grand yacht in the sort of South Pacific or something. I know you don't make much money making books, but
No.
it is a labour of love to do it, and I know what that's all like. But the information is great, and as I said, you can pick it up. You don't have to read it. If you're not a great reader, but you're interested, and it will set you off on a whole lot of different mental processes. Especially if you're new to, you're sort of heard stuff and you're thinking, oh, I'd like to be more informed. So, Celia, thank you so much for telling us about your book and about the process and your spiritual journey. And no doubt I will bump into you on another talk when I'm out and about doing them, which
Indeed.
is very, very kind of people to ask me because I'm no expert in anything. So I
Yeah,
just
but
try and...
you have a lovely manner. It's very easy to communicate with you, which is important.
Oh, well, it's very kind of you to say so. I do try to I try to keep things light and not be
Yes.
too dark.
No, good.
So there we are. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on.
Take care.
I will be back with more monologues and wonderful interviews, of course. But in the meantime, from Celia and I, thank you so much for watching and see you next time. Bye for now.